Humble thyself in the sight of the Lord, and he shall live in what? Higher and he shall live in what?
And now we're at the sixth seal. So here we are. As the Lamb opens the sixth seal, the beginning of God's wrath is seen. So we're at this beginning, which now continues through the opening of the trumpets and the bowls. So we're going to have to go through the seals, the trumpets, and the bowls. It only ends with Armageddon. So from here on in, it's just going to be all that stuff you heard about. And I'm going to make it as easy as you could possibly be, but that we'll be all aware. And if somebody asks, then you're not going to be listening to doctrine that isn't going along with the Bible, because we're getting this directly from the Bible. And if there's a lot of false teachers, there's a lot of people out there trying to make a buck on the new millennium coming in and end times, it's going to get worse. There's going to be so many books, and there's going to be so many people come forward and start talking about end times and Jesus is returning. The tabloids are just having a ball with it already. You know, you see, Jesus is on tabloids now more than the movie stars are, I think, you know, because they're looking for the end times. So, but we have to be aware. What does it really say? You know, and if you read this without some sort of cross-referencing and all that, it might be very confusing to you. So that's why we're doing this. So it's going to continue from now till we get to the Armageddon, with Armageddon. So Armageddon, what is it? A lot of people just talked about Armageddon when I was first studying, and what is it? And I was afraid to ask because I didn't want to look stupid. But Armageddon is a symbolic place where the battle of the great day of the Lord shall be fought. Symbolically, that's where it will be fought. It will be the final confrontation between the forces of good and evil. It's going to happen, and that's Armageddon. The word literally applies to the plain, which is the crossroads of three continents, Africa, Europe, and Asia. Therefore, symbolically, the crossroads of humanity. Isn't that interesting? Asia, Europe, and Africa. All different types of people. And it's on the western slopes of which Calvary was probably located. We'll learn more about Armageddon when we get to the Revelation chapter 16. And that's when we really get into it, because that'll be the end of all of this. The sixth seal changes the scene back to the physical world. We've been in the throne room and looking at all of these different things, but now we're actually looking at the world again. The five judgments were directed towards specific areas, but this judgment is universal. Everyone will be afraid when the earth itself starts to tremble. We know when this earthquake locally will happen, the whole world is going to be trembling. It all begins with a great earthquake as God's wrath is beginning to be poured out. We are going to be reading about 4 earthquakes taking place during the last 7 years of this tribulation period called Daniel's 70th week. In Matthew, Mark, and Luke, Jesus predicted many earthquakes. Remember we said that we may be in the birth pains right now. So we're starting to see those earthquakes starting to happen. The biggest would be the last one at the end of the millennium. Now we're not talking about this 21st century that's coming up. This will be the end of the millennium where Jesus spends 1,000 years in Jerusalem with us, and the whole world is being reformed, changed over. This one will result in the renovation of heavens and earth, the scripture says. And it'll be at the end. It's Jesus here for 1,000 years, then this big earthquake. Satan's released for a short time, you remember that, and then he gets the nations to come against Israel, and then that's when the big earthquake comes. Okay, Isaiah talks about that. Isaiah 66:22, as you can see in the bulletin there. As the new heavens and the new earth that I make will endure before me, declares the Lord, so will your name and descendants endure. From one new moon to another and from one Sabbath to another, all mankind will come and bow down before me, says the Lord. And they will go out and look upon the dead bodies of those who rebelled against me. Their worm will not die, nor will their fire be quenched, and they will be loathsome to all mankind. So Isaiah, way back in the Old Testament, gets a little bit of a glimpse at what this final thing is going to look like. But even he is saying, the Lord is saying through him, we will endure, even through that. Okay. Now remember, I say we're talking about God's wrath is beginning here, but what you're going to be reading and studying is what those who will be here will have to witness. And we know, and we've seen earlier, that those who believe in Jesus Christ are not appointed to wrath. And he's coming in what we call the rapture, and he's going to get us out of here before all this would happen. So it may be a little while before this would go on. But don't listen to anyone who says it's going to be on December 23rd in 2021. You know, when they come up with a date, they're speculating. And they're hearing from a voice maybe that isn't God. There's no one. This isn't a part of God's plan to give us the time that it's going to happen. It's got to be like a thief in the night. It's got to be so that you don't even, you're not even expecting it. You know, he has to catch us that way. That's why we always have to be ready. So let's read our lesson for today. It's in Revelation chapter 6, verse 12. I watched as he opened the sixth seal. There was a great earthquake. The sun turned black like sackcloth made of goat hair. The whole moon turned blood red. And the stars in the sky fell to earth as late figs drop from the fig tree when shaken by a strong wind. The sky receded like a scroll, rolling up, and every mountain and island was removed from its place. I'm just going to use those verses there. And as you see that description of what John sees, you would think, that's it. It's over with. What more can happen? So we have to look at that a little more carefully. That is definitely a big earthquake that happened when he opened that sixth seal. 5 times the stars are mentioned as being affected as the sun is. This isn't the only place he talks about the stars being affected. But only twice they are said to be falling to earth. This isn't the only place. Twice it says the stars are going to fall to the earth. Once here, and another time at the coming of Christ, at the end of this 7-year period, which will be immediately after the tribulation. Let's go to Matthew 24. Matthew really got a lot of stuff because 24 is loaded with things that relate to Revelation. 24:29 says, immediately after the distress of those days, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. See, Matthew, the Lord was speaking, and Matthew recorded that Jesus was telling them what it was going to happen after the tribulation. After, it says, after the distress, and that's what that means, after the wrath. At that time, the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky. This is the second advent. And all the nations of the earth will mourn. They will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of the sky with power and great glory. So will everybody see Jesus coming? It says so. Jesus said it, and Matthew wrote it down. Yes, they're going to see Jesus coming at the end of the 7-year period. And he will send his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the 4 winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. Okay, he's going to gather his elect. Who are they? The elect are all of those who have salvation. We will all, along with the angels and the souls of those that we studied who were under the altar, everyone will be called to follow Jesus immediately after the tribulation, that's the last 7 years. The heavenly host, everybody is going to be following Jesus. We can see that there are several years between this sixth seal and the return of Jesus. So this mention of stars falling to the earth could not be fixed stars. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any stars to fall when Jesus returned. They're not fixed stars, which are really suns to other planets. That's what the stars are. And they're much larger than Earth. So how many could fall? One, and the Earth is gone. They refer to meteors or shooting stars, as we see quite often, but probably a rain of stars like you wouldn't believe, at this point. And this revelation could not mean the extinction of heavens. Why? Because I'm saying it, Jay? No. Or some commentator? No. It's because they are seen many times after this. Likewise, this does not mean the extinction of islands and mountains, because several years later they are again affected by another great earthquake. Actually, early in the Old Testament, we see the world lasting forever. And I want to say in Ecclesiastes, the first chapter, verse 4, it says, generations come and generations go, but the earth remains forever. So we say, well, the earth's going to be destroyed. Well, King Solomon, when he wrote it down, said, no, it's going to be forever. Then, to confirm that, we have David, Psalms 104:5. He set the earth in its foundation. It can never be moved. Now, these are just two out of the Old Testament. We see all the way through prophecy and through the Bible that the earth is forever. Okay, I'm going to look at this a little bit further. As you see my study today, you're going to see a reasoning, a thinking and a reasoning as far as these scriptures are concerned. So this study in our series of Pentateuch to Apocalypse is not a teaching to scare us by saying the end of the earth is coming. That's what the devil would like to do, just scare people to death. The end of the earth is not coming, but rather the real beginning of the earth is coming. That's what's happening. We're in the birth pains. See? We must adopt a different way of accepting life and the things around us now. We're in a generation that's different from any generation that has ever been. Before, they just went by what the teachers were saying, and they were scared to death because they were into all kinds of things. That's why they had to make Christmas at a time when they were celebrating the solstice. Yeah. They have all these holidays that they made for Christians because they were so spooky. They were spooky about everything. It's not a time to be that way anymore. We have to start looking at things realistically. And now we have more intelligence. Now we have more communication. Now we are aware of earthquakes that happen across the country, and we're aware of everything that's going on around us. If we're also aware of what the scriptures have been saying from Pentateuch to Apocalypse, we don't get spooked anymore. Oh yes, I remember reading about that, and so-and-so said it, and remember it was in Revelation, and you start getting excited about these things because the new world, God is now establishing his earth that he had planned from the very beginning. Psalms 102:25, it says, in the beginning you laid the foundations of the earth, and the heavens are the work of your hands. They will perish, but you remain. They will all wear out like a garment. Like clothing, you will change them, and they will be discarded. So here we have in Psalms, after David said that one thing, here we have a hint here that in Psalms that things will be changed. So I tell you, I told you that we're in a thinking mode here, all right? Looking at the scriptures, balancing the scriptures. That's why you have to know them all, and you just can't stop with one. Will there be an earth? Yes, it's forever. But we see out of the same mouth that wrote that, he says it will be changed. It will wear out like a garment. We're all decaying. Everything's decaying. We are decaying. The world is decaying. Everything's decaying. It's wearing out. So keep that in mind. 1 Corinthians 7:29. There's Paul. It says, what I mean, brothers, is that the time is short. From now on, those who have wives should live as if they had none. Those who mourn as if they did not mourn. Those who are happy as if they weren't. Those who buy something as if it were not theirs to keep. Those who use the things of the world as if not engrossed in them. Why? For this world, in its present form, is passing away. So we as Christians, we used to joke about that. You know, they'd say, let's get a big building for the church. Oh, we'd never get that paid off. We don't have to worry about it. We can buy things as if they're not ours to keep. You know, let somebody else pay it off. We're looking for the new world. We're looking for the new thing that God is bringing to us. Paul says that this world in its present form is out of here. Maybe another hint that we will have a world but in a different form. Now this, I'm getting into something here. We already know that we will be in a different form. We looked at those souls under the altar. And they didn't have their bodies, but they had a body. What was that body? It was a soul and spirit. So we'll put a robe on them. So as I speculated, that the white robe, which we see as righteousness, is put on and takes the place of our sinful flesh. So we're going to have a body, but it's a new body. We read about that all the time. We don't know exactly what it is, but if we're going to be like Jesus, they put fingers in his side and saw his hands and his feet, and on his wounds were all there, if you wanted to see him, probably, you know. But as far as going somewhere, he could appear and not be there. He could translate wherever he was going, you know. So I could see us in the millennial period serving God in the temple, and if we are working in another country for the Lord, you know, we just go. We don't have to wait for a train or, you know, check to see when the airlines are going. We're just there. You know, we're like, we have seen translate as Philip translated down to the eunuch to minister to him. It's a word called translate. Anyway, so we are going to be in a different form, and maybe you can see where I'm going with this. So how should we today be looking at life and things around us? I say that maybe we should start looking differently. Now, I always want to say, and particularly when we're into this sort of thing, check things out for yourself. I don't want to be laying down things, and if you have doubts or you wonder about those things, check it out. Not by what somebody else is saying, but check it out with the Scripture. If you have to do word studies, if you have to pray and let God show you. But I'm just telling you the things that I'm finding by checking it out, you know. And we all have that responsibility to do that. I can make a mistake. I'm only human, you know. But right now, I really feel that God is talking, and God is telling you, Jay can make a mistake. So check it out yourself, you know, as well. But this might give you something to start to check out with, you know, this teaching that we're doing. 2 Corinthians 4:18. How are we to be? Paul says in 2 Corinthians, so we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary. Things are changing. What is unseen is eternal. Now to me, that just really came out like a neon light, just flashing. Jay, look at this. This is the answer. We keep thinking and trying to fit our life into what eternity is going to be, and it won't be this way. Will the earth be the same? Yeah. Are there going to be animals? Yeah. Are there going to be plants and trees? Yeah, because he says all of creation will be eternal. Will the world be just the way it? No, it might be changed a little bit. How does it change? Well, it'll probably go back to the way it was supposed to have been with Adam and Eve. But it was after Adam and Eve and the floods and all this stuff that things changed, you know. Now he may reform that because we don't need that. Well, what was it like back when it was just nothing but a garden? It was more of a different atmosphere. You know, you didn't have to go around putting manure on plants and watering this and watering that. God took care of all that. You didn't have to do anything. You didn't have to work to take care of things. God took care of it. It was like a greenhouse type thing. You know, it was the atmosphere is entirely different with the world grew, and there was things and food and stuff. We know we're going to eat because Jesus made that very clear when he saw the disciples. He says, "Have you something to eat?" Now, why would that be in the Bible? It seems like there's a lot more things to talk about besides eating, except that that was very important, that we know in our new body we will be eating. Why? I don't know why, but we will be eating. Maybe it's related to what we were seeing that the wisest man, King Solomon, said, eat, drink. These are pleasurable things. God looks at them, feasting. That's the banquet. We see these things all the time. These are pleasurable things that God has given us. Can't we enjoy life? It seems like I have to cut out everything. You don't have to cut out. He gave all this to us so we can enjoy them. It's for us, not the devil and not evil people. It's for us to enjoy all of the food and all of these things. He says, whatever he's made clean, don't call unclean. Now, he restricted the Jews in the Old Testament just to be checking their heart. Are you going to do what I told you not to do? And they always did it. They always did the wrong thing. But then when Peter was still trying to be a good Jew, then he rolls this sheet out with all of this goody stuff, all these animals that you weren't supposed to eat. He was talking about two different things. The Gentiles were about to come on the scene, but he was also telling Peter, all of these things are clean. You can eat anything. Whatever he's put on this world. In this world, we can eat, but we should take it to him and ask. We should pray over our food all the time. I think our cooks, our dietitians, or people who are making all of the ingredients that we're sticking in there and we're spraying on stuff, those are things that are killing us. It's not the food. But we don't fix our eyes on what is seen, but on what is unseen. So we're finally getting a picture of what man's going to be like. We won't have this body because flesh goes back to dust. We're only made out of dust and water. So it's not going to be this that people see. So we're beginning to spiritually be able to see people with spiritual eyes in the eternity as unseen, and they will be eternal. So many things after the millennium will be eternally unseen. A spiritual body that we live in and a spiritual earth that we live on. Maybe the earth is going to be spiritual too. Maybe he's changing the heavens and the earth. Remember, this is just speculation, but all of a sudden when I saw that and I just started looking at, now this is kind of starting to make a little better sense. I don't want you going all over saying J. Pearson says that the earth and the heavens after the millennium will be invisible. I'm kind of saying that, but that's just as good a belief as anything else, because the Bible is very careful not to actually say that, but it is an interesting concept. So it's something to look into. If we are a spiritual type with the rows of righteous on us, I'm talking about after the millennial period when the great earthquake comes. Why not that it's an entirely different existence that we're in? It's a different kind of world. It's a different kind of human being, the different kind of animals. They're eternal. The plant life, everything is something that we can't even imagine right now. But that's God's plan, that everything would be eternal. A tree doesn't grow and then start to die at the top of it, and then after a while you cut it down because it died. Could there be life? Now here's another one. I'm just going to hit you right in the head with this. But I see these things and I'm thinking, God, I don't want to even talk about it or think about it. But I'm going to present it to you. Just throw it out. Could there be life on other planets right now, but are spiritual, unseen with the eyes that we have? We're going from planet to planet and saying, well, there could be life here. Look, it shows sign that there was water at one time, so there must have been. Maybe that's what our planet's going to be like someday. It's something to think about. Maybe there's civilizations that God has already established all over the universe, of what we're going to be. Who knows, but that's really getting out there and getting into something I could get in a lot of trouble. It's something to think about if that's where we're going to be. And we're out there spending all this money going from planet to planet, and we're not going to see anything because we don't have the spiritual eyes to see the things. But maybe God sees what's there. Maybe it's entirely not. But this will be the kingdom. This is where God is going to rule. And the scriptures say the universe. We're going to rule a bunch of dead planets. Well, maybe they're not as dead as we think they are. It's a thought. In the Old Testament, the Lord tells us through Malachi that we who are grafted into the tree of the chosen people will never perish. In Malachi 3:6, it says, I, the Lord, do not change. So you, O descendants of Jacob, are not destroyed. We're not going to be destroyed. See, the Bible keeps saying we're not going to be destroyed. We're going to be eternal. But common sense tells us this body is dying. This thing that I'm in is. And we see in earthquakes and we see in all the disasters people destroyed. No, God, you destroyed all those people. How could you do that? They're not destroyed. It says right here in Malachi, we won't be destroyed. They aren't destroyed, but they're destroyed in our eyes because that's how we look at things. We've got to have a different way of looking at things. And the writer of Hebrews gives us this confidence. He says, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So as we keep talking about this forever, that is a lot of confidence to me. And that's why we say we have the songs, Jesus loves me, that's all I need to know. I just want to be right with Jesus. Because he says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one goes to the Father except by me, through me. We have found Jesus, and that's why we're here. And this is why we are worshiping together. That's why we're hanging together. This is the word that we have to get out. No, it's not all right just to do this and this and this and this doctrine and that doctrine and that doctrine and the Muslims and the Jews. They're all looking for God. They're all trying to get to what we're talking about here. But we have the way, the truth, and life through Jesus. And he was the same yesterday. He created all of this. He's the one that put the stars in place. Everything's in place. If there is life out there on other planets, but it's a spiritual life, Jesus is the one who knows about it. He's the architect. He's the one that put it together. And he's getting us ready to be a part of that. In fact, in his eyes, we're already there. It's just a matter of time now to get this thing wound down. So he was the same then, today, and forever.